The most profound content you'll ever create comes from deep authenticity. And that's what this video is about, is how do we create profound content? Now, this all started quite a few years ago when I was starting to create content and testing things out. And I realized that the things that made the most profound sense, that got the most engagement from people, was when I shared content that I was deeply personal with, content that I understood. And when I spoke from that place of my heart and I spoke with empathy, where every word meant something, then the content was better. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. See, last Sunday, I preached at a church, and at the end of the message, a guy stood up and said, "This is the most profound message I've ever heard." Now, here's the thing. That message by itself wasn't really that profound. It was actually kind of simple. It was an invitation to explore the kingdom of God freely, to be a son, to be a child, and to explore it with childlike wonder. So, why did the people who heard it feel like it was profound? You see, profound content doesn't come from only what you share, it comes from how you share it. See, most people share content from a very surface level perspective. It's content that is just rehashed. They heard it somewhere and they're just trying to recreate it for themselves. So it's not deeply personal. It's content that, sadly, AI could probably create. And what happens when you create content like this, it leaves people feeling more or less bored. And it doesn't get attention for long. And if it does get attention, if people do pay attention, it's usually that mindless attention that carries no real weight. It's the attention you get when you're scrolling TikTok, or you're just going along existing in life, and that kind of mindless scroll, that's the attention. And we don't want to give that attention, because what that attention does is just entertains you. It's usually entertainment. It entertains people, but it leaves them feeling empty at the end. That is why we have the mindless scroll. It's a place where people are mindlessly just trying to feel something. It's a cesspit where content essentially goes to die. And so we must stand out, and we have to create something that's deeper. We have to create something that's better, something that's more profound. See, we want to create content that leaves people feeling energized, like the foundation of their lives were somehow shifted, their perspectives were tweaked. Content that gets them to stop in their tracks, it gets them to pause and think, even if it's just for a moment. See, that's what we're after. That's what profound content does. See, here's the deal. Profound content stops the mindless scroll, specifically for people who are open and listening. So how do we do it? At the core, it comes down to this simple truth. And that's this truth that I said in the beginning. Profound content comes from true authenticity. See, let me explain this using science, and then we're actually going to dive in on how to do this. See, a couple of years ago, there was a study done where scientists measured the vibrational frequencies of different emotions. So every emotion has a specific frequency and vibration that is measurable that it gives off. And these scientists put people in this essentially vacuum of a room where no other sounds, no radio waves went through it, no nothing. It was a blank room. And they got them to experience different emotions, then they would measure the vibration of those different emotions. Now, at no surprise, some of the top ones was love and gratitude, because if you feel this sense of love, it gives an emotion, a vibe, it's vibrations, it gives a vibe that feels good. Another one is gratitude, because when you're in a state of gratitude where you're just thankful for your existence and thankful for different things, it creates this, again, a good vibe, right? But here's something that's interesting. There was a frequency that they tracked and measured that was 400 times higher than that of love. Higher than love. So what was that frequency? Well, if you've been following along, yes, it was the frequency of authenticity. See, it's the highest measurable frequency that can come from humanity. It's people who are just authentically themselves. And they're not trying to get anything. They're not trying to prove anything. They're not trying to become something. They're just sharing the things that are on their heart. They're living from a place of gratitude and thankfulness, a place of bliss, a place of enlightenment where they feel full. They're just in a state of being. And from that state of being, we're not trying to prove something or measure up to something. They're able to live authentically. And in that authenticity, it gives off the biggest vibe. Isn't that kind of cool, right? In simple terms, when you speak from authenticity, you give off a vibe that cuts to the heart of those listening. It's why in the Bible, people were astonished when Jesus spoke, because he spoke as one with authority. Authenticity gives you that authority, because it was how authentic that Jesus was with himself. See, he fully knew who he was. He embodied his identity. He wasn't trying to be something for anybody else. He was just fully convinced in who he was. And from that place of being fully convinced, he was also fully convinced in what he was sharing, the words that he was speaking. So what he shared, he did with no hidden agenda. It had no need to impress people or to be proven right. Instead, what he shared was simply an overflow of who he really was and what he believed. It was authentic. You see, this is the reason why my message that I preached felt profound, because I was simply speaking from the depth of my heart. I was feeling what I was saying. It was authentic. It came from who I knew myself to be and what I knew that I had experienced and the revelation that I had. See, that's the core, the foundation of creating profound content. So how do we actually do this? Let's break this down into bite-sized pieces. Number one is you have to actually become authentically you. That's the first step. If you want to create truly profound content, you have to become authentically you. See, most people are a product of their environments. They are a copy of what the culture tells them to be. You can't expect to create profound content if you're stuck in the same loops as everybody else. If you're just trying to fit in with culture and try to be something for the people around you. This means you have to let go of the control that the culture has around you, and any preconceived ideas that you have that may have been forced, propaganda that may have been forced onto you that you didn't even really realize was there because you were just living, right? We have to let go of those things. It's the first step to actually create profound content. You have to find who you were created to be and own it and be happy to be you. Be genuinely happy to be you. Be genuinely happy that you get to exist and you get to provide something of value to the people around you. We're in this state of love, a state of enlightenment, a state of bliss. You're just in a state of like, wow, I get to exist. This is awesome. See, simple acceptance of who God created you to be, a divine being infused with his glory, with specific dreams and desires and skills. So it's fully you. It's fully divine. It's connected in union because of what Christ did on the cross. It's uniquely you. That isn't a copy. That's your first step. It won't be easy. It's not easy to fully let go of the things that have so far caused you the experience that you have had in life. But you have to let it go. It's not easy, and you may never really fully get there, and that's kind of the point. It's not really about getting there. It's about enjoying the journey of just discovering the fullness of who you are and to be who you're created to be. See, we get to explore who God created us to be and show up content and happy to be who we are. And how do we do this? From my experience, it starts by spending time with God. It starts by spending time in meditation, where you sit in meditation, you silence yourself, complete silence. And then you start letting go of the things that are attached to you. You start letting go of those things. And as you let go, then you start grabbing hold of the things that God has said that you are. And in that place, you'll start to become authentically you. See, that's step number one, is to become authentically you. You have to become authentic yourself from the deep within you before you can create really, truly profound content. Step number two is you need to actually know the content. And by the state of knowing, I'm not saying like this surface level knowledge of it where is essentially, again, only as deep as most people go, but we need to truly know the content. Before content can grip the hearts of others, it must first grip your own heart. It must mean something to you. It must be profound to you for it to be profound to the people that you want to share it to. So let it be profound to you. You must intimately know it simply for the sake of knowing, not for the sake of trying to teach others. See, again, a lot of content creators and people out there are caught in trying to teach others. So they're constantly looking for content ideas, which is not a bad idea to see what people are engaging with. But then the content doesn't become their own. But you must let the content become yours. You must understand it. You must see it. You must feel it. You must caress it. Go deep with it. This is where you become curious and you dig into the topic to truly, fully understand the truth of it. You're seeking the truth, not to try to confirm your existing bias or existing preconceived ideas. See, that's what we tend to do is we go into the Bible, we go into whatever we're looking at, and we try to prove that what we think is right. We have these pre-existing ideas, and it's not the way to do it. You have to let your heart be open, your mind be open to truly learn, to see the truth. What's the best way to do it? See, I had to let go of my need to be right so that I could truly dig into a topic and see the simple truth of it. In fact, one of the lessons that God had me do and things that God had me do as I was growing to get to know Him, He told me, hey, Justin, I want you to let go of all your preconceived ideas and read the Bible. So I did. And what I read, He illuminated and made alive in a way that I didn't know was possible. But it became real. It became my own revelations. I actually understood things that I hadn't understood before. And so I speak from that place, that depth, because I've gone deep with it. See, it's simply this journey of curiosity to try to understand the depth of it, to seek the depth of it. See, I would meditate on it. I would think of examples of it. I would truly like, ooh, what about this? What about that? I question it. I try to prove my ideas wrong because I was open. I want to get to the truth of the matter. And that's the key. You must desire to actually see the truth of it, not just a good idea of it or theory around it, but to know the truth. See, as the Holy Spirit would lead me through it, I started seeing things differently. It became profoundly personal. Because it became personal, I had a key to be able to share it with others in a profound way. That's number two. Number one, you have to be authentically you. Number two, you must know the content, truly know it. Number three, and this is where we start creating, you must create with empathy. See, once you deeply know the content, then our goal is to share it in a way that others can grab hold of it in the same way that we did. Because if it became profound to us, then we want to be able to share it in a way that's profound to others. And we do this by creating with empathy. Now, I like to write. So I'll write with empathy. And by writing with empathy, what does this mean? It means this is where you feel what others are feeling as you're creating it. As I'm speaking here, I'm feeling what I'm saying. I'm feeling how it's being received. And then I'm creating. I'm speaking from that place because I truly believe what I'm talking about. See, that's the key. When I'm writing specifically, I'll put myself in a state where I can feel the questions that come up and the emotions that people are feeling as they write. That's my best content was content that was just deeply emotional. It connected with people emotional, but then it shared a really cool little truth because it was profound to me. A profound little truth that people were like, wow, that's really good. they leave feeling like, oh, wow, that is so cool. Because I'm writing to their emotions and the questions that are coming up in their spirit, all while guiding people to a specific outcome. Because we need to also, as we lead with empathy and we're feeling these things, we must also write in a way that's transformational so they get the profound concepts that we're talking about. Again, this is why people felt like my message was profound. It spoke to their hearts, to those that were truly listening. It shifted their thinking. It made it simple to grasp. They understood it. Because truly profound content is, at the core, simple. Because you need to simplify it so people get it. Again, this is all because I was speaking from a place and creating from a place of empathy. When you do the same, and your content will feel more personal than ever, and people that are actually have ears to hear, who are actually paying attention, their mindset will be tweaked. Again, that's our goal, to create profound content. Again, how do we do this? That's the third step. Number one, you must be authentically you. Number two, you must know the content, deeply know it. Number three, you must create it with empathy, feeling what others are feeling as you're speaking, as you're creating it, so they go along with the journey. Because if you feel it, like you notice, like as I'm speaking, my voice emulates what I'm saying. It rises and falls because it's creating this journey, because I'm speaking from emotion, from my depth. Does that make sense? You want to do the same. Finally, number four, the fourth thing we want to do, and it's the same thing as anything else, we want to practice. Simply go out and create. Yeah, it's cliche. It's like, yeah, everybody says to do the same thing, but it's true. You must consistently create content. Must consistently be learning, be in a state of learning, be in a state of knowing what the content is, letting it be transformational for yourself, profound for yourself, but then practice that, practice the knowing, but then also practice teaching it, practice sharing it, putting into a way that people can grab hold of it. See, the issue is that I've seen different people who create content consistently and they don't get any traction. So it's like, why isn't this working for me? The reason it's not working is because they're just sharing content that has been rehearsed, that they learned somewhere else, surface level content that isn't profound. It's vanilla content that can be replaced by AI, and we don't want to do that. We want to create depth, because if we create depth, people pay attention because it's emotional. It goes deeper than just the surface level words. Because people that create that kind of content that's just vanilla, they're like, well, I've tried this. I've been doing this for a long time. I had a friend who was doing it for a long time. But his content wasn't getting engagement because it was just rehearsed talking points that he thought he needed to say. And it wasn't really deep. It wasn't really profound. It wasn't really authentic. And so people didn't really pay attention. Instead of that mentality of, shoot, why isn't this working? We want to stay in a place of compassion and curiosity, because maybe you're creating content and it's not working. And that's all right. It's good to put in the practice. But when you're putting in the practice, as you create content pieces, get to learn from it. Be curious about it. Okay, why did this not work? What was happening? Why didn't people engage? Was I talking to their hearts? Was I just trying to say something that I wanted to share? Was it emotional? Did it connect with them or not? And as we do that, as we're curious and we have this compassion, we'll see if people got it or not. And we can learn from it. Sometimes we know our content so well that we speak over people's heads and they can't follow along. That's why you want to speak at a third grade level so people can understand it in the most simplest terms. So it's simple to get, simple to understand, simple to follow along. See, other times we won't set up the content well, where we won't connect emotionally with where people are at. And so therefore they're not hooked into it. And so they keep going on because our attention spans are shorter than ever. So you must hook people well Start with something that is either profound or different or just a big idea in general. And people will be like, whoa, I'm interested in this. I want to know a little bit more about this. Then lead them through it. And if you add that emotion, you add that profoundness that's coming from the depth of you, then they're going to want to continue to watch. And when you do that, as you continue improving, your content will become really good. People will start engaging. People will talk about your content. They'll like it. They'll share it. And they'll say how profound it was for them. But it takes practice. The key is practicing well, which means you learn as you put things out. You don't just keep putting things out and say, oh, it's going to work at some point. It's going to work at some point. You actually have to learn from it. Understand, why didn't it work? Why didn't it connect with people? What can you do to make it better? Because if you do that, if you practice well and you're continually learning, you're going to get a little bit better every single time you do it, which will improve the content that you create. It's going to become more and more profound. And that's the 4 steps. See, the most profound content you'll create will be one, it's going to be very authentically yours. It's not going to be a copy of something else. It's going to come from you knowing your stuff and truly knowing it and understanding it, why it works, the reasons behind it, not just the surface level knowledge of it. See, that's the biggest thing. It needs to be authentically yours. It needs to be unique. And 2, you need to connect fully with where the audience is at, so it can grip their hearts as well. Because if it's profound for you, it can be profound for other people. But you must learn how to actually connect with people. That's why we create with empathy, from a place of empathy, where we're feeling what we're feeling. So again, what was the 4 steps? 1, you must become uniquely you, authentically you. And that's not always easy, but start the journey. Start learning how to be you. 2, you must actually know the content, truly know it at its depth. 3, you must create with empathy. And finally, 4, you must actually practice and practice well. You put these together, you're going to create content that stands out from the crowd. It'll stop the mindless scrolls. It'll get people to start thinking. It'll tweak the way that people think and give people something deeper to think on. An example of this is a video I posted on YouTube in 2016. It was a video that talked about surrendering to God. And I just kind of posted on YouTube, but I didn't tell anybody about it. Somehow it got picked up onto Google and people started watching it. It has over 20,000 views, I believe, 15 to 20,000 views, I think. Anyway, 2 years later after I posted the video, I just posted it once, but it was profound. It was something that I had really thought about, that I knew the depth of. And so I was speaking from that depth. And 2 years after I released it, someone took the time to find my email address and send me a message to tell me how much that video actually impacted their lives, because I took time to create it. And it was authentic. It was something that I knew, that I understood, that I had experienced in life. And I was still learning, but I was sharing the journey. It was an authentic journey. Because I was sharing the journey, she took it, this person took it, this lady took it, and she was like, wow, that's really good. That changes the way I think. That shifts my perspectives. And that's the invitation for you right now is, will you go? Will you create? Will you get to truly know the topics and dig deep into them so you fully know them? And will you start creating content? Again, you don't need to have anything specifically profound in the beginning. You just share from your heart. And as you share from your heart and you learn how to be authentic in the words that you're speaking, you learn to feel it, you're going to start creating content that matters, that's profound, that changes lives. So will you take the invitation? Will you step out? Will you start creating? That's my invitation to you. Go start creating. Even if you don't think you're good enough, it doesn't matter. There's somebody out there that needs what you have. In the same way that this lady needed to know about surrendering to God and a different view of what it means to surrender to God. In the same way, because I didn't know that while what I was creating was good. In fact, in that time in my life, I wasn't really in a great place, but I was still speaking authentically. because it came from the depth of me. And just because I did that, somebody's life, multiple people's lives got touched because of it. So that's your invitation to go, to create, to make something that people want to engage with, that changes their lives in some way. Will you do it? Will you take the invitation? Will you go? Will you create? Let's do it. Let's do it together.